Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel. In this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of the local time. And the most important updates are coming from the western Avdiivka flank. The Russian soldiers, as a result of very heavy clashes, very fierce battles, managed to establish complete control over the village by the name of Umanske and forcing the Ukrainians to withdraw their positions and to fall back further in direction of Karlovka Water Reservoir and Novosilovka Pirsha. The Russian sources on the 9th of May published the video of complete control over the village, at least over the central part. There is a town hall or something like this, and there was a statue of Russian soldier, of a Soviet soldier who was most likely liberating Ukraine during the Second World War, and the Russians raised the Soviet flag on the shoulders of the soldier. And this video and the author of this video confirms that from now on the village is under complete Russian control. And this is a disaster for the Ukrainians because we see that the main supply road between Yasnobrodovka and the rest of Netailove that left under Ukrainians and Umanske was cut off with Novosilovka Pirsha. So basically, summarizing everything, the Ukrainian defense belt on this direction collapsed. Furthermore, the pro-Ukrainian mappers like Deep State confirms additional Russian progress through the fields in direction of Yasnobrodovka itself. So the Russians are moving on this direction either, and most likely Yasnobrodovka is going to fall in the very near future. So once again, during the previous few days, we have adjusted the map. As you can see, during the previous few days, the Russians managed to improve their positions along this line. They captured the stronghold on this road. They captured the village, the northern part of the village itself. The Russians are getting closer and closer to Yasnobrodovka. Currently, we don't know for sure the status of the southern part of Umanske, but some sources are saying that this part of Umanske is also under Russian control. Furthermore, during the previous few weeks, there were reports that the Russians entered this territory as well. And the most important updates also are coming from Netailove, because according to different mappers, according to different sources for now, without any geolocations, the Russians managed to improve their positions in the village as well and to capture the central part, the high-rise building, and the Russians managed to establish control over the school in this area. So the Ukrainians control just the low-rise building area, so residential part, and most likely the Ukrainians will fall back as well. So if we summarize everything, this is approximately the territory that is currently located under complete Russian control. Significant progress. We see the Russians are moving on three directions, and most likely, if we summarize everything and we build some projections, most likely this part of the foothold will be captured by the Russians in a very, very near future, maybe even, let's say, before the 15th of May or something like this, because there is no more resources and forces from the Ukrainian side to support defense and let's say, some resistance in this area. Furthermore, the Russians continue moving in direction of Nivolska from Pervomaiska. We have additional updates from different mappers that the Russians are moving something like this. Currently, there are very heavy clashes, but the sources are saying that Ukrainians still have forces, still have possibilities to hold the area, and the Ukrainians are not retreating. Mainly, there is the, let's say, area of responsibility of the 59th Brigade, and there are still very heavy clashes. Now we are moving to Krasnohorivka. If you remember, just yesterday we talked about possible cauldron in the area, and we were talking about these fields, about this territory, because if you remember, according to different mappers, this residential area was captured by the Russians, and today we got the first geolocations confirming this. For now, we have adjusted just a part of the territory under Russian control. I'll remind you that according to most of the mappers, this part of Krasnohorivka is already under Russian control, and most likely this is exactly like it, let's say, exists in the reality. But for now, we just updated based on the geolocations we received. Anyway, the progress is significant. The Russians currently is fighting with the Ukrainians in the eastern part of Krasnohorivka. Furthermore, the sources reported, the very reliable sources reported, that the groups and squads of 59th Brigade of the Ukraine Armed Forces left the settlement at night, Krasnohorivka, without waiting for evacuation and, let's say, munition rotation to the rear. So they're basically, according to the source, the forces of 59th Brigade abandoned their positions as 115th abandoned few weeks ago, as 67th abandoned in Chasiv Yar a month ago. So now the Ukrainians decided, because their commanders doesn't care about their lives, the Ukrainian forces, Ukrainian soldiers decided to take the questions of their survivability in their own hands. So they abandoned the village. Furthermore, we got the updates from the 59th Brigade from outside of Krasnohorivka already. So most likely this video was made somewhere along Schmitta Street, or this one area, area. We have added the fire on this second because this part of Krasnohorivka was set on fire by the Russians' artillery strikes, total and tower strikes. So basically, entire Krasnohorivka soon will be reduced to ruins as a result of even fire and very heavy clashes. So we have lots of geolocations, lots of updates confirming that Ukrainians are leaving Krasnohorivka, and most likely this territory might be captured by the Russians also probably before the 20th of May or something like this. At least the Russians will be able to, by these dates, to reach this line. So most likely this is going to happen like this. Of course, another disaster for the Ukrainians. Now we are moving further to this third very important area. The Russians continue offensive operation on the line Staromayorsko-Urozhaine. Currently, we have additional updates from different mappers that the Russians currently is fighting with Ukrainians inside of Staromayorsk. This information was confirmed by different mappers like Syriac and pro-Ukraine mapper Deep State. So if we summarize everything, this is approximately the current situation in the area, including Staromayorsk and including Urozhaine. So this is the broad frontline attack where the Russians try to regain, let's say, positions they lost during the Ukrainian summer greatest counter-offensive operation. Of course, the Russians are not going to stop. They will continue moving further because the Ukrainians don't have enough of, let's say, reinforcements or enough of reserves or weapon or artillery shells to stop the Russians, and the Russians do have everything they need to basically to break this Ukrainian defense without any resistance and without any problems. Despite the progress and despite the Russian results in Urozhaine, Staromayorsk, Krasnohorivka, western Avdiivka direction, we continue receiving significant number of videos and geolocations from Kreminna, Kazachie Lagery, from Kherson direction. I have no doubts that Ukrainians are planning to try at least to make an attempt to, let's say, to break the Russian plans about Kharkiv offensive operation. Just during the previous night, we received 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 geolocations of Ukrainian FPV drone strikes on the Russian forces in Kazachie Lagery. So if once again we need just to increase the numbers of this since the beginning of May, and we're gonna see the full picture of the clashes inside of Urozhaine, Kazachie Lagery, Kreminna and Kherson. So the situation is very difficult. As you can see, the Ukrainians continue sending more additional forces, and when talking about the Russians, we can say that we see almost no resistance from the Russian side. Just there were some kind of resistance in the vicinity of Kherson, so in the vicinity of Dnieper estuary, but when talking about this part, almost nothing from the Russian side, which of course allowed the Ukrainians to act as they want. So most likely the Ukrainians during the May, somewhere before the beginning of June, will make another landing operation with the purpose to establish not just a small foothold between 2 or 3 streets. Most likely the Ukrainians will try to capture as many as possible towns and villages along Dnieper River. So I think that Russians see everything as we do, and most likely the Russians are maybe planning to make something like some ambush for the Ukrainians and then to capture them and to, let's say, defeat them and to, let's say, suffer them significant losses. So we'll see, cause them significant losses, we'll see. Chasiv Yar direction, no changes on the ground, just artillery bombings, clashes, and without any progress. We have additional reports, additional updates about Russian progress in the vicinity of Veselye, different mappers confirming additional Russian progress through the fields to the north in direction of Siversk. Some strongholds were captured, and we have very interesting video that was published on YouTube. We don't have access to the video, we can't download it, but if we summarize everything from that video, during the previous few days the Russians conducted massive storm of the stronghold from 2 directions, from the northern direction and from the southern direction. Currently we don't know for sure whether the Russians managed to establish control over the stronghold or not, or the attack was repelled. Video was published by the 54th Mechanized Brigade, so most likely the Russians managed to advance and achieve some results, but when talking about the taking under control the stronghold, unlikely the Russians managed to do this. Now we're moving to this period of the front line, my favorite, this direction, Kreminna forest. The forest is burning till ruins, till I don't know, till dust. I don't know how to explain this in English. Every single square kilometer, square meter in the area is covered with significant fire, and the main fire, let's say the biggest concentration of fire, as according to this satellite picture concentrated on the Russian positions. Of course, as I understand, the Ukrainians most likely managed to find some solution, and they took initiative in their hands, and they're trying to set the Russian positions on fire, which of course forced the Russians to fall back. This fire in Kreminna forest, if we summarize everything, if we build some projection, can force the Russians to abandon at least this part of the forest, and this can ruin significantly Russian, let's say, attempts and Russian achievements during the previous phases of the special military operation. Of course, if the Russians start abandoning their positions, they will be forced to abandon them towards Kreminna, and of course the Ukrainians will have possibilities to enter and to capture the abandoned Russian positions, and after that the Russians will not be able to set the ruins on fire once again, because there going to be nothing that can be burned by the Russians. So this is the things I tried to explain to you during the previous days. So we'll follow the situation, of course, but the picture, as I understand, develops, at least for now, at this stage of the special military operation, not in Russian favor. Now we're moving further to the north in direction of Berestova. The second day in a row we continue receiving updates about complete collapse of Ukrainian defense belt in Berestova. The Russians currently entered the village and there are very heavy clashes, and maybe today the Minister of Defense in their upcoming, let's say, report will announce about complete control over this village. We'll see. Furthermore, we continue receiving different updates from Ukraine, from political events, and the most important, that the Russians destroyed significant, let's say, part of Ukraine energy facilities and energy generation. And probably the most important update about political events is that today, on the 9th of May, for the first time since the beginning of special military operation, for the first time since the beginning of Ukrainian total bloody mobilization process, Poland returned back Ukrainian who ran away from Ukraine, who escaped mobilization through river. He was captured in Poland, he was arrested, and he was sent back to Ukraine because he should serve in Ukrainian army. So that was the first case, and now, as I understand, every single country in Europe will send back Ukrainians to Ukraine to fight with Russians, and there are significant number of people, you know that. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.